All right. Well, I guess it's showtime. Um, this video is kind of self-explanatory in the title. I'm going to be going back over some old photos through case files on Stephen Avery case.org, etc. And we're going to be looking at and talking about quite a few different things. But before we get started, um, I mentioned the other day on my Facebook page that I want to start a new solo series called Poison Prosecutors. Um, got contacted by individual in the comment section on one of my other videos, and she told me about a county in Wisconsin called Walworth County that has some quite extraordinary stories uh, that comes out of that county, specifically dealing with the assistant district attorney and the district attorney involved in a bunch of cases that got overturned by the appellate courts and stuff like that. Wasn't I was planning on doing that first, but I wanted to do this one. So one day coming soon, we'll start that one off. Another thing I wanted to bring up is Mysteries of Manitowoc. I haven't heard from Thomas in 10 days. I heard that he was out of town. Hopefully that's true because typically he'll message me back within that amount of time. I'm hoping that Manitowoc didn't drive up to Canada and pay him a visit, but I doubt it. Hopefully he's just busy or whatever. So I'm sure he'll be getting back with me and we'll be doing episode 4 of Mysteries of Manitowoc. And as always, that'll be very exciting. And most of you probably already know. For those who haven't, I'm going to talk briefly and I'm going to actually show you a few photos. Yesterday, some more pictures was released through FOIA of the gravel pit, Manitowoc gravel pit, and pictures from Cuss Road, aerial photos, all different types of photos. I want to say it was 250, 246, somewhere in that range. We're not obviously going to cover all of those today. I think Millbilly went through some yesterday. He did a really good job. Speaking of, if any of you aren't subscribed to his channel or Foul Play, so go subscribe to both of those channels. Millbilly is an awesome researcher, and he always offers to help me with information, and he's just overall a really good guy. I like him a lot. So we're going to go through some of those pictures. Not many at all. I just want to hit a few points that maybe I've talked about before and want to go over. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to one of these photos. Okay. These are some pictures that was released yesterday. Okay. Now the first picture, let's just go ahead and throw this up. First picture, obviously, is Stephen Avery's burn pit behind the garage. Now, I've talked about before how not only myself, I want to say there was a forensic anthropologist that actually testified in Stephen Avery's trial, testifying to the means of how you would typically document, photograph, and extract bones from a burn site or a burial site very meticulously. I didn't even say that right, I don't believe. Anyways, you get the point. So that I talked about how that wasn't done in this case. So you can see this skid steer. You see a guy standing there with a shovel, and you see somebody in the skid steer, and they're driving over there to this burn pile. So supposedly now, you know, we all know it's false, but supposedly where this burning murder disposing of a body took place. This very tedious crime scene that isn't a crime scene at all. But this isn't how it's supposed to be done. It's supposed to be extracted. The bones are supposed to be extracted in a manner to where you do least damage as possible. You get an idea of where the body was laying. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not an expert. I'm not claiming to be, but there's a lot of information on the internet and, forensic journals or what have you. You can look for yourself on how these types of crime scenes are normally processed by forensic anthropologists. The one that I spoke with said that the only way you would use a skid steer or a backhoe or anything like that is if the bones were so deep that they couldn't be got to with any other means. So to go even further on that, I want to put this picture up. So you can see now the skid steer has scooped up a big old pile of dirt, and they're bringing it. Now, why? I don't have a clue. I mean, I couldn't tell you. I mean, even not being an expert, just logically thinking about this, why are you extracting bone and dirt, supposedly, from this location and bringing it to a completely different location? You're disturbing every bit of so-called evidence that could possibly be there. So they're bringing it over to this other pile. Now, Bubba and G.I. Jane is over here, and I'm not quite sure what they're doing. Okay. Bubba's standing there looking. I don't believe he wants to get down in there and do too much of anything. Okay. This lady who I do not know, I mean, it looks like a lady. I could be wrong, but looks like a lady. She's down there digging through something. At least she has gloves on. I mean, that's a good thing. But why is the dirt even brought over here? Why are you scooping up the dirt, bringing it to a completely different location, spreading it out? I mean, all of this is supposed to be done on a tarp or a sheet. It's all supposed to be laid out in the position to where it would go on the body. There's things that you can learn from the bones. That's why they extract them very carefully. They document the bones. They photograph the bones as they're found. To my knowledge, and I could be wrong, I don't think I am, but I could be. In my opinion, this is absolutely absurd. I got to come up with another word because every time I do a video, I say absurd at least 30 times, but it is. Maybe I'm going to have to expand my vocabulary. This is just crazy to me, in my opinion. It makes no sense logically. I can't come up with the reason in my head of why this is taking place. Why is Bubba and G.I. Jane over here digging through this? I don't see a sieve. I don't see anything. So I'm not quite sure what's taking place there. If somebody does know, maybe you can enlighten me. If you're an expert on this matter, maybe you can tell me what the heck is going on. Now, another photograph that was released yesterday, if I can find it. I got like 50 of them up here, but just give me a second. Here we go. Now, this suspectedly, because to my knowledge, when they released these photos, they didn't release coordinates or ledgers or anything of that nature. To my knowledge, they just released photos. So it's kind of up to you to determine where the locations are in these photos. Okay. I'm going to say, and I've talked about it with people that know a lot more than me yesterday, Millbilly being one of them and other people, that I think it would be safe to say that this is more than likely in the Manitowoc gravel pit. Now, what are you looking at? In my opinion, okay, this looks like the contents that was dumped out from a burn barrel. We don't necessarily know if bones were found in this. We know bones were in Manitowoc gravel pit. We don't know if this pile contained bones. We just don't know. I don't, to my knowledge, at this point with these photographs. But it looks like to me that this was inside of a burn barrel, and somebody brought a burn barrel all the way over there for some reason and dumped the contents out. I see Coke cans, general trash, a bunch of ash, things of that nature. However, it's very important that once we know exactly which piles had bone in them, I mean, this is a huge piece of evidence. If they're trying to say that Teresa Halbach's bones was in these barrels or in these piles, then that's a big piece of evidence. Another picture released yesterday was this one. Now, this one, again, I believe this to be in the Manitowoc gravel pit. So you have a bunch of busted up concrete, and right beside it, you can see a black pile. Looks like it's got a water bottle and some cans and stuff. It looks like another either burn site or dump site. Somebody brought something over there, dumped it out. I think it's interesting to note how many burn barrels are in question in this whole investigation. I mean, it's actually, to me, it's quite odd. I mean, you have a burn barrel in Steven Avery's front yard that has supposedly the contents, Teresa's cell phone, whatever, her Palm Pilot, all of this. You have a burn barrel behind the Dassey residence that has supposedly Teresa Halbach's bone fragments in it. Then the dog hit on the burn barrel at the hunting camp, and then we have bones spread all over the place. It really begs the question, which is why we are talking about this. What the heck is going on? What in the absolute heck is going on? How can you even put the pieces together on a puzzle like this? I mean, to me, a lot of people are doing good work at doing that. I think his name is McNilla. He did videos with Eric Jose and Paul Capaldi laying out the paths that the dogs took, and the bones and different things. He's done really good work. There's other people that's done really good work and trying to put the pieces, get them to fit in this puzzle. But when I think about it, from my simple mind, it just blows my mind. How can you have all of these different places with these different bones? I mean, I can't think of a scenario short of Steven Avery being innocent to where this is even possible. I think, and I want to say I read today that Kathleen has even said this, but I think that the body was burned in the burn barrel, nowhere near Avery's salvage yard, and then was brought to the places where they were found. Now, jumping to some old pictures, and the reason why I want to go over these is because I noticed simple things while I was looking through some of these photographs. Let's start with this one, since we're talking about bones. Here is a picture of the burn pile, right? It's a little bitty black hole right there. Looks like a part of a tree or a bush sticking up in there. You got a bunch of cans and you got all this other stuff. Well, around this burn site, there's a bunch of dirt, and then there's even gravel. Right where the dog's standing, all that white stuff is gravel. Now, I've asked a few people that know a lot more than I do, if, did Steven or somebody do dirt work prior to October 31st? I didn't get an answer, definitively, because it's hard to tell, not because they didn't know. And then did he do supposed dirt work after? And to my knowledge, now, like I said, I'm not an expert in all of the details about this case. That's why I'm talking about this, to enlighten myself and my viewers. But to my knowledge, this is the scene, right? This is how it looked on October 31st. This is, and after. Now, we've all heard Kathleen Zellner's expert say there's not enough ash to support a fire of that size for that length of time to consume a body. If you have ever went out in your yard, put a bunch of tree limbs, tires, trash, whatever you can think of. If you've ever burned a fire for, let's say, 3-4 hours, the expert I talked to said you could burn up a body completely to the bone in a pit like this, but it's going to take you about 6 hours, and you're going to have a lot of fuel. Fuel meaning tree limbs, tires, etc. It's going to take you a long while. But where is the ash? What's the claim? Okay? Because there's no ash around this pile. There's dirt. There's gravel. You have black ash right in the little center of the little pit. But there's no white ash. There's no ash to support a fire of that size. And like I said, if I'm wrong, if there's something out there, because I don't say 100% unless I know 100%. But if I'm wrong, if there's something that says, oh no, somebody did this or did this, whatever, you're wrong. Okay, I'll admit to it. Okay, I'm man enough to admit when I'm wrong. I'm not misleading anybody. It's my opinion that if this is indeed how it looked, it's preposterous because there's no ash anywhere. Now, something that's been more frequently talked about and litigated time and time and time again is, well, let's start with this one. We'll get to the key in a minute. I want to start with this one. Okay. Here's a picture of Steven Avery's bed. What date? I couldn't tell you because they don't put the date with the pictures. But it has to be after Teresa Halbach went missing. I mean, I don't know why it would be in the official photographs, or whatever, if it wasn't. So just when I'm looking through pictures, I'm just looking for things that don't add up with the story that they have told us. Okay? And you can say what you want about any piece of evidence. Well, this, that, whatever. If the state convicted these two men on a theory and a story, then what else are you left to do than to try to discredit that story? Now, people have different angles they want to come at doing that. Some people want to talk about discrepancies in witness statements or court documents or a whole variety of things, politics or this or that. That's fine. My thing is, when I'm looking at pictures, I want to look at something. I want to look for something that don't add up with what I was told. And what we were told was Teresa Halbach was shackled to this bed in handcuffs and rode whatever. Bunch of different stories. The story kind of changed every time Brendan Dassey told it. There's no scratch mark. If you handcuff somebody to this bed, first of all, I don't even see a place. Now, really think about this. I don't even see a place on these bedposts. The girth of these bedposts, where are you fitting a handcuff around? Okay? If you take the thinnest part of the bedpost, where's the handcuffs going to snap around? That's pretty thick. It might not look like it in this photo, but I guarantee you wouldn't be able to put your hand all the way around it. I don't think you'd be able to, even at that thinnest point, I don't think you'd be able to snap handcuffs around it. But even if you can, where are the scratch marks? That's one thing I've noticed in these photos. Where is the struggle? I mean, if he lured her into the trailer and then attacked her, where's the struggle? Now, if you say, well, maybe he caught her from behind or something, okay. Still, where's the scratch marks on the bedpost when she woke up? Supposedly, she was begging Brendan for her life. I'm sure she was tugging at those handcuffs back and forth, trying to get a loose from them, which I'm not even convinced would have held her because they look cheap. I'm not convinced that if that would have happened, they wouldn't have found DNA in the chain links of those handcuffs or in the crevices of the handcuffs around the wrist part. So there's no scratch marks on the bedpost. Now, also, in my mind, when I look at this photo, there's no, for instance, if the story were to be true, that Brendan Dassey stated that she had her throat cut on this bed and stabbed in the stomach, haircut, etc. And first of all, there's no blood on the mattress to support that at all, not a drop. But let's say all that did happen, and the state is claiming that Steven Avery cleaned up this crime scene to the point to where CSI couldn't find any evidence. Did he selectively clean up spots he thought may have had evidence on it? Because on the top of this headboard, there's dust everywhere. You can clearly see it. If he was cleaning the headboard or the nightstand or anything in the area, you wouldn't leave to chance. If you was going to bother cleaning at all, you wouldn't leave to chance missing a spot, would you? There's dust on the headboard. There's dust on the nightstand. There's looks like a hula skirt hanging above the bed. I can't even imagine why that's there. I'm assuming that's Jody's. So things like that, it just don't add up. To me, it don't make sense. If a murder happened in there and you're just cleaning the crime scene, I don't think there'd be a speck of dust in there. They try to claim that he shampooed the carpet or something. So he just completely forgot that, to hit the dust on the bed too. I mean, it's kind of crazy. So now moving on to the key. We've all heard this 1,000 times, but I want to reiterate it now that I have the ability to put overlays on the screen. Let's start with this one. Okay. This is the official photo of when the key was found. Now notice and remember that, and you can't see it in this photo, but I know y'all all know it's there because we've seen it before. My logo actually is blocking it, but keep in mind that Colburn testified that he admitted to handling this bookcase rather roughly, twisting it and turning it and being rough with it. And then in doing so, this key came out from the back of this bookcase, got past the wire that's plugged in to that plug-in, walked over and landed where you see it laying in this picture. Now, we've already discussed that there's no wear marks on the key. We've already discussed that her DNA is not on the key. It's been looked at and talked about any possible way that you can imagine. But I mean, look at the bookcase. It's sitting there against the wall, still in the photograph. Did he twist it, turn it, knock everything off of the bookcase and disturb the books and the dust and all this stuff on the bookcase and then put it all back to take a picture of the key? No, I mean, it's obvious. This, to me, is the most telling piece, and it is to a lot of people. This is the most telling piece of evidence in the entire case. You can't even lie properly. You can't even frame properly. Okay? You have a key laying there, and you testify that you shake this bookcase so hard that the backing is kind of separated from the case itself a little bit, and that this key flies out of there, but the bookcase is not disturbed. There's loose change, quarters, nickels, dimes on the bookcase. None of it's disturbed. There's actually what looks like a piece of lint or something right there sitting beside the remote. And if you go to StephenAveryCase.org, you pull this photo up and you zoom in, you can see it a lot better. It's not even disturbed. So I guess the lint sitting right on the edge of the bookcase, it must have fell off and they picked it up and put it back on there, right? No, it's an absolute lie. It's planted. And we all know that. Now, I know I had, let's see. All right, before we get into this next part is the main part I want to talk about. Before we get into this next part, I want to explain something to everybody, because a lot of people don't know. A lot of people message me and they tell me, they don't quite understand certain things. So I'm about to show you an example. I'll tell you what, let's put up this picture first. This is the 22 rifle that Steven Avery owned, or maybe it was the guy that owned the house. Whoever, regardless, this 22 rifle was in Steven Avery's possession. The state claims that this is the rifle that shot Teresa Halbach. According to Brendan Dassey's testimony from March 1st, which I have listened to the entire thing today again, just to make more notes, he claims that Steven Avery shot her 10 times. But then he also claims that he tells them where he shot her. And then in another statement says he didn't look because he can't look at stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't want to get into the whole interview because that would take me forever. But this is the rifle. Notice on the rifle, the silver piece is called the bolt. This chamber right above the trigger. Keep in mind, it's on the right-hand side of the firearm. Why is this important? We're going to get to that in a minute. I thought it was very interesting. Okay, the bolt is and the chamber is on the right side of the weapon. So when this weapon is fired, the bullet leaves the gun. The casings eject from this rifle to the right-hand side of the rifle. Not to the left, not to the back, not in front of it. The casings eject to the right-hand side of the rifle. I'm going somewhere with this, so just bear with me, pay attention. For demonstration purposes only, this is a 22 rifle. Not the same one. However, right side of the rifle, and it's hard to see, that's why I have a different one here I'm going to show you. Right side of the rifle. When this gun is fired, this bolt comes back, and the casing is ejected to the right side. Each time it's fired, this bolt comes back, and a casing is shot out, and another one is loaded into the chamber, right? Automatically, okay? Now, this one you can see better, and it's because it's silver, and that's why I wanted to bring this one in. So, same thing, different gun, not implying at all that this is same gun, obviously. Chamber, right? I mean, a bolt, right? In the chamber, to the right side of the gun. Not all of them are, but Some of them are, some different gun designs are on the left. A lot of them are on the right. So on the right side of the weapon, when you fire this bolt comes back. The shell casing is ejected to the right side of the weapon, and it comes back automatically. Fire it again. This comes back. Shell casing comes out. A new one's loaded in. This comes back automatically. Each time it's automatic. Now, semi-automatic. Don't get that confused. With this one, this is a bolt action. Same thing. You have a bolt in the chamber. Only difference is when you fire this weapon, you have to manually open the bolt up, and then the casing will eject on its own. You have more loaded in here, so when you close it back, another one is put into the chamber. So when you open it up, it shoots out. A new one's loaded into the chamber. Right about now, you're probably asking where I'm going with this, and I'm about to show you. So keep in mind, the gun supposedly that Brendan Dassey claimed that Steven Avery shot Teresa Halbach with, the chamber's on the right side of the gun. Now, I cannot speak, listen to me clearly, I cannot speak to how far the shell casings eject out of his Marlin. Judging by my experience from shooting guns my entire life, all kind of different guns. I actually used to own that almost identical gun that's pictured in this photograph. I had a Marlin 22 tube loaded just like this. So I can't speak to that weapon. I'm not saying that what I'm about to say is a fact, but with my 12 gauge, my 22 specifically that automatically eject the shells, they don't eject right by your feet when you shoot them. They eject anywhere from 3, I've seen it go up to 6 feet. Maybe I'll do an experiment one day showing you how far the shell casings actually eject from the gun. So why is this important? What am I talking about? Familiarize yourself with the garage, right? Most of you are, maybe some of you are not. This is a depiction of Steven Avery's garage. Okay. Supposedly, that's how, per Brendan Dassey, this is how the RAV was backed into the garage. And you can see the lawnmower. You can see all of this debris on these shelves on the right-hand side. You can see the air compressor right beside the big red toolbox. Okay. So that's how it supposedly looked. Here is a photograph. Most of you probably know, but in the March 1st interview, Wiegert asked Brendan, hey, I want you to draw me some pictures. And Brendan's like, okay, cool. I'll draw you some pictures. In this particular photograph, now keep in mind, it's going to be sideways because for whatever reason, they scanned it like that, and I played around with it. I couldn't get it to do right so I could flip it. So it's going to be sideways. So you're going to have to keep in mind, according to his drawing, where everything is at. And I'm going to put up multiple pictures so to try to get an idea before I get to my point. So this is the drawing that Brendan Dassey did. Okay. This picture is sideways. But if you look at this picture, you can see where the lawnmower at. That's easily identifiable. We all know where the lawnmower is at. You can see the little square at the top right that says small. That's the small entrance door that he drew. Directly south from that, there's another rectangle, and you can barely see the little writing inside there. That is the big garage door that he drew and labeled. The square coming directly in front of that garage door is his drawing of the RAV. They asked him where was the RAV at, how was it parked, and that's where he said it was at. The little circle is right behind the lawnmower is where he said blood was at. Well, let me rephrase that. Yeah, he said that's where he said blood was at. But in a previous statement, he said he helped Stephen Avery clean up some red liquid. We're going to get to that in a minute. He claims that they put Teresa Halbach in the back of the RAV, which is the square, and then they decide to take her out. Now, keep in mind, it's all fabricated. But he claims that they lay her exactly where she's depicted laying on the ground. They have an X that says SA. Obviously, that's Stephen Avery. That's where he supposedly was standing when he shot her. Okay? She's laying next to the RAV. And Brendan is standing closer to the lawnmower than Stephen. He has an X with his initials right there. So familiarize yourself with this photograph where Teresa's laying directly, I'd say 3-4 feet behind the lawnmower next to the RAV. Stephen is standing, I'd say about 8 to 10 feet behind the lawnmower. And this is his depiction now. This is their theory. This is their story. Okay? Why is this important? This is a photograph looking directly into the garage. You can see notable items like the air compressor. You can see the big red toolbox. You can see this engine lift, hoist, whatever you want to call it. To the right of that, you can see all kind of clutter, right? Ladders, boxes, all kind of different things, right? You see all of these evidence tags that they have placed. Number 10 is a shell casing. Maybe one of the 10 that they're referring to. Well, if you look at the shell casing, it's obviously old as dirt. And keep in mind now, Stephen Avery said that Bobby and others would shoot the .22 all over the yard, and before he would cut grass, he would take the shell casings and sling them into the garage so he wouldn't hit them with the lawnmower. Okay? This shell casing, I'm not sure why it's marked as evidence, because this shell casing has absolutely nothing to do with any shooting that took place, because it's severely corroded. It's dirty, it has dirt on it, and it's in the wrong spot. Look where Stephen Avery's supposedly standing. He's firing towards Teresa Halbach, which is towards the compressor. Keep in mind, the chamber is on the right side of his weapon. The shell casings are going to be ejecting into that debris pile where the boxes and the ladders are. It's not going to be to his left. Another thing that I want to bring up involving the same thing. This is an actual photo. The state claims that there were 2 entrance, not exit. There were 2 entrance wounds on skull fragments believed to be Teresa Halbach's. One of the locations that there's a suspected entrance wound that they claim is consistent with a .22 rifle bullet is right where depicted in this photograph. The high, I'd say middle to high part of the back of the skull. Okay, this is an actual photograph from StephenAveryCase.org. I believe it's one that was submitted in trial. Answer me this. If Teresa Halbach, per Brendan Dassey, is laying right here, that's her depicted. The little stick figure, that's Teresa Halbach. See your little mouth sticking up? And her arms spread out? That's Teresa Halbach, supposedly, right? She's laying on her back, suspectedly already dead. So how is it that Teresa Halbach has a suspected bullet hole in the back of her skull? Because you can say what you want. You can theorize anything that you want to. You can say whatever the heck you want to. I don't care. Everybody has an opinion. You're entitled to it. But Brendan Dassey doesn't have physical evidence tying him to this case. He is essentially convicted almost entirely on his coerced confession alone. This is his version of events. This is what he says happened. And this is why I like forensic evidence. Because forensic evidence will match the truth. Okay? And what my goal is to say, hey, that's 100% false. There's no way. If this happened, if you convicted this man, kid at the time, on this statement, it's absolutely false. There's nothing to support it. How do you get a bullet, an entrance, suspected bullet wound that's consistent with a .22 caliber bullet on this part of your skull from this angle? Now, let's just hypothetically speak and say, for anybody that wants to doubt that, let's just hypothetically speak and say, for some reason, Steven Avery walked around the other side of her and shot her too. What does the evidence say about that? What would that make sense? Let's see. Wrong photograph. We'll use this one to start out with. Keep in mind where she's supposedly laying behind the lawnmower, kind of probably close to where that leg is on the engine lift. Now, if Steven had walked towards the red toolbox and fired a shot into Teresa Halbach, which way would the chamber be pointing? It'd be pointing over there towards the refrigerator, looks like, and into that debris pile. And he wouldn't have been able to shoot her in back the head if she was laying on her back. Okay. A better picture of that corner, and while we're at it, let's bring this up. There's a creeper that says Blackjack right there laid against the compressor. And supposedly now, this is off topic, but I can't help but bring this up. Supposedly, Brendan Dassey claims that they laid Teresa Halbach on a creeper that was red and black. Unless I'm colorblind, there's no red on this creeper. Number two, he claims that they didn't roll the creeper to the burn pile. He claims that they laid dead weight. Okay, when you're, I'm not sure if y'all are aware of this or not. Maybe you are, but if you pick somebody up that's living, it's a lot easier than picking somebody up that's dead. It's called dead weight. Brendan Dassey claims that they laid Teresa Halbach on a creeper and that they didn't roll it to the burn site. They carried her on the creeper like a stretcher to the burn site. Why am I bringing this up? Well, first of all, the description of the creeper don't match. To my knowledge, there's not a drop of physical evidence on the creeper. Third, and probably more importantly, you would have to convince yourself that Brendan Dassey, this is not a knock, it's just an evaluation or an observation, would have the strength to carry a dead body on a creeper all the way from inside this garage to the burn pit. I'm not convinced at all, to say the least, that he would be able to do it. Another interesting aspect, really quick, is notice the square again that he says is the rab that's backed into the garage door. Wiegert asked Brendan if there was any blood behind the vehicle, and he says no. So Brendan is saying that there's no blood. Okay, so if you look at the trajectory, Jesus Christ, from where Stephen Avery is standing to where Teresa Halbach is laying, the bullets supposedly and the shots are fired into the other corner of the garage towards the refrigerator. So the forward spatter from the so-called bullet that had Teresa Halbach's DNA on it, Brendan's saying they didn't clean up anything in that direction. Nothing. But yet not a drop of blood or DNA or hair or anything was found in that garage. The only liquid, let's put it that way, that Brendan Dassey claims he helped Stephen Avery clean up, he says is a red liquid, I believe. And we're going to wrap up real shortly. If you look at this photograph, this is the little white circles that he drew behind the lawnmower. This is where he says they cleaned up some stuff, right? He helped Uncle Steve clean up some stuff. And if you go to the actual photographs and look at them and zoom in, you can actually see shoe prints on the concrete from, like, I guess stained or whatever, they stepping in bleach or whatever. But if you look right beside this black toolbox that has these red drawers, that looks like a toolbox to me. Right behind number 6, there's red liquid on the ground. To my knowledge, that is not blood. It may be, don't get me wrong. To the best of my ability, as far as I have researched, that is not blood on the ground over there. That's some type of red liquid. Now, if I'm wrong, I'll correct that in the future. But if that is indeed some type of, there's many different liquids that's red or pink or whatever, the transmission fluid, all kind of different stuff. Power steering fluid in some cases. So if indeed that's not blood and that's a red liquid, then yeah, Brendan Dassey might have very well helped his uncle clean up some red liquid that he spilled in the garage. The problem is, really, and I'll end on this. The problem is when you have a confession from anybody in any case, you should be able to take that confession and you should be able to take all of the evidence and you should be able to match that evidence almost to the T to what the person said, if that confession were to be true. Time and time again, it doesn't add up. I mean, the shell casings would have been, in my opinion, the shell casings would have been in this debris. Oh, and I want to note, just for the record, if you look to the right side where all this debris is, there were like 1 or 2 shell casings found over there. Don't get me wrong. But remember, I told you that typically these shell casings, they don't fall right at your feet. That does not happen. With a weapon that automatically ejects the shells, they don't come out of the gun and fall to your feet. They shoot out 3 to 6 feet. And like I said, I'll do an experiment video one day. We'll look at it in better detail. The shell casings, there was 1 or 2 over there on the floor, very close by what you're seeing there by number 11, that could have very well been thrown in the garage like Stephen Avery claims before he cut grass. There was none, to my knowledge, in any of the boxes, over there on the floor, back behind some of that other stuff, or caught between a couple of pieces of debris. There was no other shell casings over there, except the ones that was close by the ice chest, which is right there, I want to say right by number 11. You have 1 or 2 shell casings right there, which would have been, if you compare it to the photograph that Brendan Dassey drew in the state's theory, that would have been within 1 feet, let's just say 2 feet of where Steven Avery would have been standing with the weapon. The shell casings would have been in that debris. And I'll say that, okay, one of them hit something and bounced back in a different direction or something. I'll give him that. But time and time again, this case doesn't add up. The forensic evidence doesn't match anything that they say. And it's astonishing. And it just doesn't make any sense. So let me know what you think in the comment section. And like I said, I have other videos planned. And we will be doing those as soon as possible. Foul Play has Thirsty for Theory Thursday on at 8 o'clock. If any of y'all are not aware of that, y'all interested, y'all can go. I think OB1 is on there. And make sure, like I said, make sure y'all, if y'all haven't, I'm sure all of you have, go check out Millbilly's channel. That's going to be it for tonight, and I appreciate everybody's coming and joining in. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Feel free to share this video, give this video a like, and that's going to be it for tonight.